Hope everyone's having a pleasant morning. This is the 50,000 mile review of our 2021 F-150 with the 3.0 Power Stroke diesel. 4-wheel drive, crew cab, 6.5 foot bed, and the XLT with 302A package. In a word, we love this truck. It's not the perfect pickup truck, but it's an excellent pickup truck. We'll just put it like that. We're not even going to say it's near perfect. It's just a very, very, very good pickup truck, and it does not everything, not almost everything, but a whole lot of what we need. Very, very, very well. If you've heard us talk about it before, its weaknesses are a matter of record, and really its weaknesses are in large part the reason why this truck was canceled in the summer fall of 2021. Specifically, it's light on power, it's short on power, and it's short on payload, and those two things make it not really an ideal truck for towing. It was originally introduced in 2018 as the diesel F-150, the diesel light-duty pickup truck that you would get if you wanted to do a lot of towing. And it was never really the ideal truck if that's what you wanted. It was never really even close to the ideal truck. Again, because of the fact that it's light on power and it's light on payload. And those two things mean you're not going to be pulling a heavy trailer, heavy for a light-duty pickup, with this thing comfortably and sustainably. We have tested its limits, and with a 28-foot gooseneck trailer, we've got our Featherlight, weighing only about 5,000 pounds. It just starts to struggle going up hills. It's got a very, very tall final drive. Maybe if we had bought the 373 final drive with this truck, it would have done better. Maybe if we put a tuner on it, maybe, you know, the people who have deleted their trucks, which we don't recommend because it's highly illegal, they say it's great on power. But that wasn't really an option for us because of the fact that it's, you know, we're doing a lot of business with it, and if it's your personal truck, you can take your chances with the EPA. If it's a business type situation, you don't really have time to mess around with that kind of thing. But it just, you know, again, you've seen our videos of trying to tow a 5,000 pound gooseneck trailer with this thing. It'll do it, but it's not going to be happy to do it, and it's going to let you know that it's not happy early and often. When you're going up hills, and then when you're going down hills as well. You know, it's short on power on the uphills, and it doesn't have any exhaust braking capability on the downhill. So, you know, depending how much load you're pulling, and depending how steep the downhill is, you can get into a tough situation pretty easily. And so so again, that reason, the lack of payload, which limits your total towing weight legally, and the lack of power, which makes it less than completely pleasant to tow with this thing, coupled with the lack of exhaust braking, you know, it becomes clear that this is not going to be the truck you keep for 20 years and pull 5 or 6 or 8,000 pounds with consistently and happily. Again, it can do it. It's just not the most pleasant experience. And that's in large part why this truck was canceled. Summer, fall of 2021. The Power Boost had just come out, which is the 3.5 liter hybrid with the Pro Power on board system, either 2.4 or 7.2 kilowatts. That is a much, much better truck if you like towing, and you like towing fast, and you like towing with ample amounts of power. This thing was never going to be able to compete with it. Again, back to back, if you drove the two trucks, it was a night and day difference. And we had the opportunity to do that a lot because we had a Power Boost for 2 years, put 60,000 miles on it, loved every minute of it, ended up getting rid of it. And the reason we got rid of it is because the Power Boost with that 3.5 twin turbo V6, it's a monster. It has ungodly amounts of power. But we weren't convinced of the long-term longevity of that engine. A high-pressure, turbocharged, all-aluminum V6 gas engine with a lot of technology. We didn't get the feeling that engine was going to age gracefully after a couple 100,000 miles. And then the fact that that engine, when you put it under load, and we've been over this before, the mileage goes straight down the toilet. We were getting mid-single digits towing a small 12-foot enclosed cargo trailer with it. Mid to upper single digits on a good day. And so it had to go because we do lots and lots of towing over thousands and thousands of miles. And this truck has just hit 50,000 miles in really only about 15 to 16 months. So we put the miles on our trucks. We put lots and lots of miles on our trucks. And we didn't enjoy the idea of getting mid to upper single digit MPGs towing a trailer down the road for thousands of miles. But again, back to back, the Power Boost is just a much more pleasant truck to drive. It has more power than you're ever going to need in basically any situation, at any altitude, because of the turbochargers. You know, it's not as if it starts to lose power when you get up in the elevations like you do in the Rocky Mountains. We were just in the Rockies late last week, and you know, you start at Denver, which is a mile high, literally about 5,300 feet, and then you go up from there. In an hour and a half, you're passing through the Loveland Pass, Silverthorne, Breckenridge area, and you're at 11,000 feet. And so you need a truck that has turbochargers, because a conventional, meaning naturally aspirated truck, is going to run out of breath rapidly. And that's not something you want to happen when you're pulling a heavy trailer. So that truck had to go, the Power Boost. Great concept. We love the Pro Power on board. It's kind of a mandatory option at this point. It's an option that you really don't have an option about selecting because of how useful it is and how it can save your backside in an emergency, like when you lose electricity in your house. But again, because of the long-term longevity, which we were not convinced of, and because of the extreme lack of MPGs, we had to get rid of it. Now, this truck in 50,000 miles, once you accept its limitations, again, lack of payload, lack of overall power output, and you act accordingly, it performs great. It performs, like superbly competently. And it's not a truck you're going to fall in love with like the Power Boost was, like a 5.9 Cummins, or even like a 6.7 Cummins. We've got a 5.9 Cummins, and we absolutely love it to death. That truck puts a smile on your face every time you get into it. So does our new 6.7 Power Stroke, by the way, our 2023. But this truck, again, once you accept its limitations, it does great things for you. And in 50,000 miles of driving it, we've had basically zero issues. We've taken it in for oil changes. We've changed out the fuel filter and emptied the fuel water separator every other oil change, so about every 15,000 miles. And other than oil changes, it has needed zero maintenance. Now, we'll mention one thing which is that the last time we had an oil change, they did mention that the rear differential, the oil in it was looking a little dirty, and it was going to need to get changed out the next time we brought it in. And so we will have that done. And then we'll mention that the tires, they're not unsafe yet. They're not at the point where you want to race down to the tire place and get them changed. But they're starting to run low in terms of tread depth. And so we'll probably have those done in the next few weeks, or maybe a month or so. They are Michelin's, and they have performed great. They are all-terrain Michelin's, and we don't need all-terrains. So we will probably have the same tires put on this thing that we had put on our Power Boost, which are called Michelin XLTs. And we actually get them from Costco, and I think they're exclusive to Costco. And they're not cheap. They're around $200-250 a tire. But Michelin's, if you've driven on them, Michelin's are a fantastic tire. In terms of ride quality, in terms of wet weather traction, in terms of snowy weather traction, we don't need an all-terrain. And if most people are being honest with themselves, the vast majority of the population doesn't need an all-terrain. The vast majority of the population needs an all-season tire. And that's what the XLT is, an all-season tire. And that's what we will get put on this thing. It has, I think, 17s, not 20s. The Power Boost with the Max Tow package at 20s. And the reason why it had 20-inch rims is because it had bigger brakes than this one did. This thing does not have the Max Tow. And if you're buying an F-150, by the way, we definitely recommend the Max Tow package. It never hurts to get bigger brakes. The GVWR goes up from 7,100 to 7,350, which largely means that your payload goes up, which means that you can carry more tongue weight on a trailer or more pin weight on a tongue weight on a conventional, or pin weight meaning kingpin weight on a gooseneck or fifth wheel. Now, in a perfect world, if you wanted to say, okay, this isn't really the perfect pickup truck, not even really close to the perfect light duty. The perfect light duty pickup truck in our minds wouldn't have a 71 or a 7350 GVW. It would have at least a 77 or 8, maybe close to 8,000 pound GVW, which, oh, by the way, the F-150 Lightning, I think, is at 8,000, give or take a couple hundred pounds, which would mean you'd have not 14, not 1,600, you'd have closer to 2,000 pounds or more of payload. And again, that's what you need when you're pulling a trailer in the 5 to 8 to maybe 10,000 pound range. You need that payload. This really ticks us off here. This is a Tesla in front of us. Clearly it has the autopilot or the full self-driving system engaged, and it's going, at or below the speed limit in the passing lane. And some of them just sit there in the passing lane because they're letting the car do the driving, and they've kind of turned off their brains. Hugely annoying. I mean, eventually they get out of the way, but again, you let the car do the driving. That doesn't mean you could turn off your brain and let the car sit there in the passing lane. That's a whole nother discussion. By the way, we've got a Tesla, and it works great, and we're very happy with it. But this thing has a self-driving system too, and it's not Blue Cruise. You don't need Blue Cruise. You don't need the GM Super Cruise. Hands-free driving, which those two systems say they offer you, that seems like a recipe for disaster. All you really need is the lane keeping, the lane centering, and the adaptive cruise control, and that's all you need to get down the road. We've driven between 800 and 1,000 miles in a day, both with this truck, with our Power Boost, and also with both Teslas now that we've owned. and all you need is lane keeping, lane centering, and adaptive cruise control. But again, if you want to talk about a perfect light-duty pickup truck, again, you need more GVW, closer to 8,000 pounds. The diesel, again, a fantastic powertrain, the diesel and the 10-speed automatic. But it needs more power. And if you want to add more power to a truck easily, these days, you put a hybrid system in. The F-150 Power Boost gets an additional 50 horsepower from that electric motor, give or take. And really, if Ford wanted to do it right, they would do either a diesel or a gas engine. We know diesels are going the way of the dodo bird, at least in a light duty. Both Ford and Ram have canceled their light duty diesels. In large part for popularity reasons, and also because, again, in Ford, the take rate was so low because people realized correctly that this was not the ideal truck for towing. With Ram, some people say it's because of a lot of reliability issues, a lot of warranty issues they run into with that 3.0 Eco Diesel, which was either in its second or third iteration by the time they got rid of it. GM, to their credit, they are hanging on, and they're keeping that 3.0 Duramax alive in their Silverado light duty. It gets very good power. I think 300 horsepower, close to 500 pounds of torque, if I remember right. And it's a straight six, and who doesn't love a straight six? So credit to GM, and we don't tend to give them a lot of credit, but they're actually keeping that engine alive, and people seem to like it. Once you get past that belt-driven oil pump, that's going to make you drop the transmission at 150,000 miles to change it. What are you going to do? But Ford, which does a lot of experimentation with powertrains, if they wanted to make the ideal light-duty pickup, in our minds, they would make a plug-in hybrid, because it would have all the power you're ever going to need, like the F-150 Lightning, which has tons and tons of power, and it does 0 to 60 in the 4-second range, or maybe the mid 4-second range. It would have all the payload you're ever going to need, again with a GVW in the 8,000 pound range. If it had an engine on top of the electric powertrain, it would have all the range you're ever going to need, and it would have all the efficiency you're ever going to need. And so, hopefully Ford is listening to their customers. The Lightning is not selling well. A ton of people have canceled their reservations. Ford just announced they're dropping the price on the Lightning by $10,000 on average across all the trim levels, because of the fact that truck is just not selling well. They claim it's because, they're ramping up production and their materials costs have gone down, so on and so forth, and so they can pass that along to customers. That's not true in the least. They're losing tons and tons of money on those trucks, and they're dropping prices, not because they can, but because they're desperate to move them, and they have to drop prices. As opposed to Tesla, which just drops prices because they can, because they've got massive amounts of margin, and they can afford to give some margin away because they're trying to ramp up numbers. And as you might have heard, they sold 500,000 cars last quarter, in the second quarter of 2023, and they are growing their sales 50% a year, consistently year over year. They're on track to hit 2 million vehicles this year in terms of total sales. And so the Lightning, again, good truck in a lot of ways, impressive engineering accomplishment, but the fact that they took the engine completely out of that truck makes it largely useless for people who actually use their trucks for work, and not just as a toy to commute back and forth to the office, or maybe go to Home Depot on the weekends, or maybe take their boat 20 miles to the boat ramp during the weekends. So again, we love this truck. I wouldn't say love it. It's a great truck, and we have a lot of respect for it. At 50,000 miles, it has basically no issues. I mean, if you want to start quibbling, we could say, you know, the 12-inch screen, the Sync 4, it doesn't connect to the phone as reliably as we would like. I'd say like about a third of the time. You got to fiddle with it and reset it a bunch of times to get it to connect and give you your CarPlay. That's like the one issue we've got with this thing. In terms of longevity or reliability, it hasn't. We've had zero reason to go to the dealer with this thing, other than for oil changes, tire rotations. Every other oil change, we change the fuel filter and drain the fuel water separator. But it just runs. It just goes. And after 15 months with this truck, again, it's just got no issues. Once you accept the fundamental trade-offs that Ford made when they put this powertrain into it, which is the lack of power, the lack of payload, and as a result, the fact that you're not going to be comfortably towing big trailers with it. And we have high hopes and confidence that Ford's going to do the right thing and either put a range extender into the next F-150 Lightning so that it actually has the range you need and it's not an expensive paperweight, or they take the power boost and they put a bigger battery into it. And so one of those two would give us the perfect light duty pickup if Ford made one of those two choices. And we got high expectations of Ford that they're going to do the right thing, because they've been very close to the bullseye with a lot of their recent powertrains. We've already talked about the heavy duty pickups, the Super Duty, great truck. We've got a 23. We love it in most ways. Almost every way. It solves all of the issues we were just talking about in terms of lack of payload, lack of power that this F-150 has. But not everybody's going to want a Super Duty. And not everybody should have to get a Super Duty to be able to comfortably tow about an 8,000, maybe a 10,000 pound trailer over long distances and up and down steep hills. You should be able to do that with an F-150. And again, we're keeping our fingers crossed that Ford will listen to the customers and do the right thing in the next few years with the powertrains, and not just dump gas and diesel altogether and go 100% electric. For cars, 100% electric is fine for passenger cars. For semis, for 18-wheelers, you can see where that market is headed. But for light duty, meaning F-150s, and for medium duties, meaning F-250, 350, 450, battery technology is not going to be there anytime soon. And so we're going to need combustion engines for at least the next 5 years, maybe longer, to give people the range they need and the towing they need. So Ford, please do the right thing here with your powertrains over the next few years. All right, not much else to add. Hope everyone's having a great week. The summer's halfway over. Hope you're enjoying it. We're having a great summer. Doing a lot of traveling in between work. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks, everyone.